Yeah, we're about to start. Today is another day in our history to discuss history. Please let everybody mute, apart from the co-host. Yeah, apart from the co-host, let everybody mute, please. Unless we make you the co-host. And today is a day, and we're going to be glad and rejoice. Dotun is coming back again. The other time she taught us Gomboro, classical cases of Gomboro in 13th or to 18th to 20th week, which is against the literature. Today again is going to discuss with history, and today we're having this program with the farmers. Some of the farmers were able to come in, they will enjoy today. And this is a very, very important. And being that this period, the cost of managing birds, the cost of the raw material, the cost of inputs are very high. That's why we're bringing in this topic, so that we can mitigate the loss from heat stress. So, Professor Oladele and Professor Usman are our anchor moderators today. And starting from Oladele, Professor Oladele. Professor Omolade Oladele, we have two Oladeles here. One is Omolade, the other one is Dotun. The prof is going to moderate the doctor. Okay. Professor Oladele, please, the floor is yours.
Yes.
As we
Yeah,
navigate.
good morning. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Eminent veterinarians here. I know we are international already because I was introduced. Somebody from Cameroon is with us, so we are international. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, farmers that are here. And then we want to thank God for today, for giving us this opportunity again to educate ourselves and to inform our farmers. I want to also thank Dr. Charles Ibe for this platform. So we have today a very important topic to be discussed as about management of poultry in hot weather. In quote, we are talking about heat stress. And Bluebird TV has done a good job in bringing to us somebody who knows about this, somebody who is very knowledgeable. That's Dr. Dotun Olubusola Oladele. He was here sometimes ago on infectious bursal disease, and we had a good time in educating ourselves on the variants, what we do not know IBD does. So he was able to tell us. So we have Dr. Dotun Olubusola Oladele again, a senior. Co-moderating with me is Professor Usman Musa. I should not forget that. He's also here. That's from Sokoto University of
Usman Danfodio University.
Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto, sorry. He's also a poultry health expert. So we'll be moderating together. So Dr. Oludotun Olubusola Oladele is a senior lecturer at the Department of Veterinary Medicine, Surgery and Radiology, University of UNIJOS. He was a vet diagnostician with animal care services consult for many years. And even as far back as then, he's been well known on the field. He's a consultant poultry and fish health right now. That is handling diseases of poultry and those of fish and their control methods. He has vast experience on the field, well known by farmers, students, and colleagues alike. So I have the pleasure of yielding the floor to him. He's a very tropical man. So it's a very good disease. When I say tropical, so he knows about the weather, he knows about the disease. So he will marry everything together for us. So Dr. Oladele, I'm privileged to call you to take on the lecture. Thank you. You need to unmute.
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, yes. Unmute yourself.
Okay.
Let me. You've unmuted me, right?
Yeah, we are seeing you.
You've unmuted me already, right?
No, unmuted, yes, we have.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Good morning, everybody. first and foremost, I must thank all elders in the house for this privilege to be before you, to share a few things with you. First of all, my Oga, Dr. Charles Ibe, he knows how to catch somebody and put the person under pressure. Whether you like it or not, you must follow what he says. So I looked at my schedules and I told myself, I have no choice. I just have to do something. And I must thank you, sir, for giving me this privilege. Professor Mrs. Oladele is my teacher. Maybe, I don't know why she didn't mention that. She's my teacher. So, and I learned a lot from her during my days, especially during my master's program, my PhD program. And she was also a co-supervisor during my PhD. And I'm privileged to be here to share just a few things with everybody. Today the presentation might not be as lengthy as that of the IBD, which I did the last time, but they are straightforward and there are very important facts that I will bring out so that we'll be able to reason together and see how we can use some of this information to help ourselves and help farmers in the industry. Now, I was given the topic heat stress, but I decided to use the statement poultry management in hot weather because in situations like that, management has to come in. My outline is thus: the introduction, definitions, factors influencing buildup of heat stress, common signs of heat stress in birds, managing heat stress and its outcome in poultry, and then my conclusion. Now, one of the things I believe we all agree on is that the environmental temperature, once it is high, especially high environmental temperature, could always have some negative effects on all forms of life, whether they are plants or animals. A few weeks ago here in UNIJOS, we realized that some of our plants started wilting because the rain stopped completely for over a period of 3 weeks. And I found out that it happened in some other parts of the country too. So it's not just animals alone that suffer, even plants. Humans and domestic animals are not exempted from this in terms of high environmental temperature. You'll agree with me that if you listen to the news, there is always this correlation between the incidence of cerebrospinal meningitis in humans and hot climatic condition. Now, what this implies is that humans need to manage or manipulate the situation in the environment, amongst other preventive measures, to ensure that there's minimal exposure to the causative organism. So let's take a look at the word manage, because if we go back to what the topic says, it says poultry management in hot weather. To manage means to be in charge of something, to be able to achieve something good or handle effectively despite some difficulty. Now, the difficulty we are facing with regards to this topic is hot weather. And how do we, as veterinarians or managers, manage the situation to ensure that we still get the best from these animals, from the chickens? A good farm veterinarian or manager should be proactive and not reactive. This is very important. And then when we're talking about poultry management, it's actually a series of activities or practices aimed at attaining the maximum benefit from a set of birds being reared for commercial purpose. Now, when we're talking about this set of or series of activities or practices, this has to do with the stocking density, the brooding temperature, the feeding pattern, the water pattern of water intake, or how we manage vaccination and so many things, you know, that will ensure that at the end of the day, you make the best out of these birds. Now, hot weather simply has to do with a period of unusually high environmental temperatures, which may be up to 40 to 42 degrees Celsius. How many of us have been listening to the news, at least this year? Like, what has been the highest temperature recorded within this year? Hello?
Yeah.
Like what is the highest environmental temperature?
43, 44.
Sir?
43, 44, I think, if I can remember.
I've heard of 44.
Around Sokoto.
So with this kind of environmental temperature, you can imagine what birds will be passing through. The negative impact of hot weather is more when humidity is high. And when we're talking about humidity, we are referring to the level of atmospheric wetness or the moisture level in the air. A man by the name Sale defines stress, because I'm trying to merge my own topic and that of Dr. Ibe. That's what stress is defined as the sum of all physiological responses by which an animal tries to maintain or reestablish a normal metabolism in the face of a physical or chemical force. So something we kind of oppose the normal metabolism, and the animal will be forced to react to it. And that is all about stress. Let's look at a few facts that will help us in the course of this lecture. One, chickens do not sweat, just as we human beings do sweat. We can sweat, we'll go take our bath. If we sweat again, we'll clean it up. But chickens do not sweat. They pant to reduce heat that is built up in them. And this is different from gasping for breath. Gasping usually has to do with serious, maybe pathological conditions affecting the respiratory tract. And you will see them maybe in cases of aspergillosis, Now, these birds also raise their wings to dissipate body heat. Heat is also lost into the air from the body of the chicken by radiation, from the combs and wattles, and by conduction when their bodies come in contact with surfaces with lower temperature. That's why at times you observe some broilers, if they have the opportunity of jumping into their bowls of water, they will jump into the place and then begin to, turn their body and all that because of the heat in their body. In the adult chicken, the body temperature is usually between 40.6 to 41.7 degrees Celsius. The body temperature of the newly hatched chick is usually about 39.7 degrees Celsius. And it increases daily until it reaches a stable level at about 3 weeks of age. Now, other facts to note. At an environmental temperature of about 34 degrees Celsius and relative humidity of 40%, it was shown that birds lost about 80% of their total excess heat as evaporative heat through panting. At the same temperature, with a higher level of relative humidity, the heat loss fell to about 50%. And at 34 degrees Celsius and a high relative humidity of about 100%, there was no heat loss and death occurred. This simply tells us that the higher the humidity, the more dangerous it is. And this is a major factor. It's not just about the temperature itself. The humidity is also very important. Now, there's something called thermoneutral zone, which we were taught in physiology many years ago. It's a range of temperatures at which an animal does not have to actively regulate body temperature. In poultry, it is generally between 18 to 24 degrees Celsius, and it depends on the age of the birds, the level of plumage, that is the feathers, the covering of feathers on it, fat level in the tissue, nutrition, and several other factors. Now, this picture here is showing you what a thermohygrometer looks like. It will measure both the environmental temperature and the relative humidity. This is an essential instrument needed in any poultry farm. Now, the use of the thermohygrometer is very important at all stages of poultry production. This is very key because right from day old, birds will be kept under a warm temperature just to ensure that they're able to develop properly. In nature, the mother hen would kind of sit and then we incubate, keep all the chicks under it warm. But in a case where somebody has up to 1,000 birds, you cannot go and import several mother hens. You need to provide an environment that will keep them warm. But that warmth too needs to be monitored to avoid heat stress. Now, when chicks are to be raised at brooding temperature of 31 to 33 degrees Celsius in the first week of life, if for any reason they are exposed to high environmental temperature, there is need to observe chicks and withdraw source of heat, at least reduce the number of coal pots that we use, because the way you brood your birds during Harmattan is different from the way you do it in the peak of the hot season. It's very important to understand this. So in situations like that, it may be important to increase the ventilation and observe if they cluster or they are arranged uniformly. This is very, very key. If the chicks are coming or moving very far away from the source of heat, it simply means that the environmental temperature, or let me say even the pen temperature, is becoming too high, and that will trigger a lot of heat stress. I recall an interesting case a friend of mine was sharing with me. It happened somewhere in Ibadan. A farmer called him and said, look, things are going wrong on my farm. Please come. Things are really bad. Now, he had just purchased a new set of DO chicks, and by the time my friend got there, something strange he observed. As he was entering, he had the man praying that, oh God, help me. I know that all the bad things we've been doing from my forefathers are responsible for the current problem I'm passing through. So he was really praying because he assumed that the mortalities in his chick's pen was because of the sin of their forefathers. Anyway, when my friend heard that, he didn't say anything. He just went straight to the pen. To his shock, he found out that many of those birds were already prostrating and panting seriously. The next thing he did was just to open the windows quickly, allow fresh air to come in, and under 5 minutes, everything normalized. And that was the end of that problem. What somebody who did not know what to do, who had assumed that it was because of the sin of his forefathers, this man, with his own experience, observed the birds and he corrected the situation immediately. So it's very important to note this. Stress of heat could even be manufactured by human being himself, not just the environment. And this is important for us to note. Now, the diagram we are seeing here is showing us something very important. If we look at this first section, column, this is called the thermoneutral zone. You know, usually between temperature of 18 to 24 degrees Celsius, of which the birds will be very okay. They won't experience any kind of stress. But the moment the environmental temperature crosses the upper critical temperature, you know, we're saying between 18 to 24. Once it starts crossing the upper critical temperature, the process of panting begins. As the temperature increases, as you can see on the x-axis, as the temperature increases, the panting will be faster, and there will be a sort of tiredness in the birds. And when it increases further, there will be a level of maximum heat loss. It'll keep panting to a level where the body of the chicken may not be able to bear this, and then death can occur because of increasing environmental temperature. This is why it is very important for farm managers or whoever is in charge of the birds to be very, very observant to avoid a situation where birds will suddenly die. Let me show us a little video here. Can we see what I'm doing?
Yes.
Okay. You will notice how these birds are panting here. They are nearly caged bullets, as you can see.
It has not opened.
We are not seeing.
Hello, can you see the video?
No,
we cannot
we are
see.
seeing the slide, but the video is not playing.
Okay, and it's playing here. Can you see it?
No?
No, not yet.
Wow. Well, it's just showing a set of birds that are panting. And maybe we would have worked on this before we started, but nevertheless, I think we can still move on. Hello?
Yeah, yeah.
You can still hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, let me see.
It looks like you're putting it on Word.
No, it was part of this thing.
It's on Word. It's on Word. Anyway, he's trying to get us seabirds panting, and maybe in cages and stuff like that. They pant more in cages because in deep litter, it gives them opportunity to flap their wings, move around, and then in that case, the heat stress is going to control a bit. But
Yeah.
in cages, they don't have those opportunities. But it's okay.
Yes, I can move on, right?
Yes, you can move on. Yes.
So, what are some of the factors that affect or bring about a buildup of heat stress? I just mentioned a few here. I hope you are saying it. You are still saying it, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. One is pen orientation. One of the major errors that people who are involved in building farms or constructing pens, one of the major errors is where they fail to take cognizance of the importance of pen orientation. What do I mean by this? For example, if a pen, the long axis of the pen is facing the east-west direction, is extremely risky because we're told that the sun rises from the east and sets in the west. Hello, can you hear me?
I'm hearing you.
Okay. So we are told that the sun rises from the east and sets in the west. So if the long axis of a pen is facing the east-west direction, what it simply means is that a high level of heat from the sun would have access into that pen. But if it's the other way around, where you have the what do you call it? The longer axis of the pen facing the north and the south, you have less of such problem. I've seen where this happened practically on some farms. Some years ago, I was somewhere in Ibadan, and on approaching the door of that pen, what baffled me was that those birds in the cages, all of them had turned their back towards me. So I was wondering, what will make all these chickens at this point in time, all of them turning their back? Normally, they ought to face me, but all of them were turning their backs. So it was then I now looked up. I found out that the direction of the sun was, the rays of the sun was so strong and it was facing that direction. And because the birds could not bear the intensity of the light rays and the heat, they turned their face away and they were facing me. They turned their back towards me, so to say. That was my first time of seeing such a thing. And it dawned on me that on such a farm, there is no way the farmer will be able to make the best out of those birds because the feed intake will definitely drop. Water intake will also be affected. And at the end of the day, the farmer will not understand what is happening, especially when it happens in the hot season. So pen orientation is a major issue that needs to be looked into. The second aspect is the inadequate supply of cool drinking water. You will get to some farms where the attendants are quite lazy. When birds had finished taking their water, or after over 3-4 hours, they are still playing draft or cards somewhere, and the owner of the farm doesn't know that these boys are not doing what they ought to do. Those kind of birds in the hot season will definitely suffer heat stress. Then another problem is overstocking. I always advise farmers to avoid overstocking. If birds are going to be kept on the floor, I always advise that for laying birds, at least at the maximum level, don't go beyond 7 birds per meter square. Because if you increase it beyond that, maybe 10 to 11 birds per meter square, like I have seen on some farms, even here in UNIJOS, you find out that at the end of the day, production will be affected, the heat will build up in the pen, and the issue of mortalities will always be there. Then another very strong factor that can make heat to build up in the pen is when there is poor pen ventilation. These are very important things to note, as veterinarians, even as we visit farms. Then what are some of the common signs of heat stress in birds? One, the panting respiration. Panting has been shown to occur in birds after 60 minutes of exposure to about 37 degrees Celsius and 45% relative humidity. Severe panting, which we call hyperventilation, further increases loss of carbon dioxide from the lung and eventually will lead to systemic alkalosis. This is a major problem, especially in poultry. Another sign of heat stress is when you notice the wing spreading and there'll be lethargy. The video I was trying to show us, you will notice that some of the birds will raise their wings so that some air will go under just to help cool the body of the birds. Then there will also be increased water consumption. Some researchers have done some work on this, and you could have a level where water intake on the average in the layer will double, maybe from about 220 to about 450 mils per bird per day, especially at the peak of the hot season. Then there will also be drop in feed intake. This is another major issue. And you agree with me that once there's a drop in feed intake, there will be drop in egg production too. Then there is also increased cannibalism. This tends to occur more when the temperature is very, very high. There is reduction in egg production, egg size, and shell quality. In fact, there are times when some farmers will be confused. When they see this sign, they'll say, it's like Newcastle won't enter again because of the shell quality. It's not really so in all cases because other things can bring about it. One of it is high environmental temperature. It has a way of affecting the shell quality. Now, also, there will be increased watery physics because they'll be taking so much fluid, and then this will lead to loss of electrolytes and paralysis will occur. You also have poor response to
Yeah, I think I don't know whether we have lost him or maybe somebody is calling him. He's a very busy person. Maybe it's this, the device is using it for phone connection, and the Oladele is so busy. Farmers don't want to leave him alone. But he will reactivate himself back. And then all these things he's saying is very, very, very important, almost extremely important in handling our climate. And we're not in temperate climate, and we use open-sided. We use open-sided houses. We are not in thermal control houses. We use, our faith relies on external temperature. So that means if it is the hot seasons, we are in big soup for the poultry farmers. And more especially, like he said, the ventilation period. Sorry, he was saying about the humid period. And the transitional phase from the dry season to rainy season can be extremely humid and can be extremely hot. And for those of us who handle young birds at that time, it's really difficult. Some diseases that are heat stress induced, like Gumboro, will come and take control. And in my own farm, when we're in my own farm, what we normally do, as the case may be, though it's very difficult actually for feed conversion to weight, increase in weight. We now pick our birds in January, so that by the time because one of the problem of heat production is that let it not get your bird at the peak of egg production. So we always want to run away.
Chief, sorry. I think maybe when I'm eager to wait for him, maybe when he come to those things, advise whether he will mention those things. Maybe
it's an interlude.
Yeah,
actually.
Dr.
Want to fill in the
may not
space.
have seen the calamities.
If there's anything
of
you can say, yes.
Yes, he may not have seen the calamities of his stress. because I think his practice is around Ibadan and Jos, and these places are nothing to compare what is obtainable in Maiduguri and Sokoto and alike. If we have seen the effect or the devastating effect of his stress in those areas, I'm sure he will have tell us more about those things. But as I said, the lecture is still going on. Well, we'll wait to hear. Maybe he has more to tell us because we need also maybe anyway when it comes. He's back.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's back.
Okay. We just wanted to fill in the gap, not.
Yes, it was a network issue. It was a network issue. So I was talking about, I overheard Prof talking about, maybe I've not seen so much of his stress. In the Southwest, sir, it can be very, very nasty, especially on broiler farms.
Yes.
I will see talk about that later.
It's okay.
Yes. Now, I was talking about some of the common signs of his stress. You talk about poor response to vaccination, lowered fertility, and poor FCR, which is a major issue. Now, in layers, the reduction in plasma concentration of bicarbonate usually compromises the eggshell formation by limiting the availability of the anion required during formation of calcium carbonate crystals in shell. It's one of those things that, confuses farmers. When they see the eggshell quality deteriorating, they'll say, maybe it is a Newcastle disease and all that. During the hot seasons, these things are quite common, especially from what we have seen. And then you could have sudden high mortalities. Now, I remember a farm somewhere around Abeokuta. They use this closed house system. And the closed house system allows you to use a higher level of stocking density. For instance, in broilers, we will say the birds, especially when they are up to about 7 weeks, ensure that the stocking density is no more than 9 birds per meter square. But with a closed house system, environmentally controlled, you can double it up to at least 18 birds per meter square. Unfortunately, something happened that hot afternoon, and I think there was a power failure. And the people who were supposed to be in charge of that pen, they don't know that the fans had gone off, everything had shut down, and the place with the high level of humidity and the high temperature, before you knew it, they lost about 300 broilers because of that error, that somebody was not on ground to avert the situation. So heat stress can be very, very dangerous, especially in very hot periods, and using high stocking density facility like that. Then even in the ones that are not having high stocking density, there are certain things that I have also observed, especially commercial broilers. The moment they exceed 3 weeks, you need to be very careful on the timing, especially in the hot season, how you feed them. I will show us as we move on some of the things that some farmers have adopted just to ensure that this kind of situation doesn't occur in terms of high mortality. So these sudden high mortalities can be very serious. Now, let me also share with us our own observation in terms of number of outbreaks of diseases in the months with high environmental temperature. In 2021, in the month of March, usually we do have very high temperatures, usually in March, April. In 2021, there were about 250 cases we received. In March 2021, in April, it was 217. And by June, because before the rain starts, you still have this heat, we had up to 276 cases. In 2022 March, it was 278 cases. In 2023 March, it was 297, almost 300. Then in 2024 March, it was 267. And then by May this year, we had up to 278. What we observed here was that it took a long time before the rain started. And almost every day, the heat was always being experienced by both humans and animals. So our observation is that usually in the months of March, almost every year, we do have very high level of mortalities, on farms and cases coming in. That's to tell us the influence of the environmental temperature on even the birds themselves. So in managing heat stress, it is important to know that it can lead to heat stroke and mortality in birds.
Network again.
Yeah,
Hello?
continue.
Okay. So it is important to prevent it. That is just what I'm trying to stress here. Now, another factor that triggers this real heat stress is when somebody is keeping a bird with the wrong orientation, which I had mentioned earlier, in a pen where there's a wrong orientation. Now, where this has occurred, there are ways of minimizing the effect without destroying and rebuilding the pen. How is this done? Now, one of the things we try to advise such a farmer is if they can have a kind of lower overhang, apart from the one of the roof, the overhang of the roof, if they can construct another one such that it will help to reduce the level of sun rays into the pen. Now, for those who may not be able to afford that, there is this local material that, this raffia, this they use for local mats, tabarma, it could be used, to cover those areas, especially once the sun is coming up high. But if that is used, it will also have enough space to allow for good ventilation. So these are some of the ways we've tried to manage it. And some will say, okay, let's plant some trees in those places so that it will also serve as a kind of shade, for the animals. So these are some of the means by which people try to reduce the effect of the wrong pen orientation, in situations like that. Now, it is also important to avoid feeding birds with high energy feed in the hot periods of the day, especially commercial broilers that are over 3 weeks old, like I mentioned earlier. Can you see what this man is holding? Hello?
Yeah.
You can see the picture.
Yes, you can see.
This wooden device in his hand, you can use it to adjust the height of the feeder. Once it starts approaching a hot afternoon, his boys will just adjust this and raise the feeders up to a height where the broilers will not have access to the feed. Then maybe around 5:30 in the evening when the sun is going down, they can then come back and then adjust it again and bring the feeders down. And then they'll give them some light in the night so that they can finish their ration for the day. Feeding them in the hot period of the day can be extremely dangerous, especially during the hot weather. I've seen farmers losing hundreds of birds because of this kind of thing. And if somebody is not aware of it, he won't understand that because of the high energy in the feed of the birds, it can lead to this kind of thing because high environmental temperature, and then as they feed, they also generate high level of energy within them. So to avoid that, this device is often used by farmers. Now, it is also important to manipulate the time of feeding. Sorry, I'm busy. Okay, okay. Hello?
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, so it is also important to manipulate the time of feeding. For example, one of the things, if you especially relate with a lot of people who are into raising of parent stock, for the broiler parent stock, oftentimes they feed them most times in the cooler hours of the day. I know of some farms that from 3 to 4 a.m., they start feeding their birds. That is the broiler parent stock. They won't do that to the layer parent stock. They will feed them in the normal periods of the day. Maybe anytime from 7 a.m. they start feeding the layer parent stock. But for the broiler breeders, They start feeding them early so that latest by 9 o'clock, when they are through with eating, they will only be on water all through for the rest of the day. So this is a way of reducing the impact of what heat can do, especially on broiler peers. Now, also, there could be a manipulation of the feed components, the concentrate, the maize, the wheat-offer ratio. If, for instance, the level of environmental temperature is so high, it also has a way of affecting the birds, even their feed intake. So one might have to kind of dilute the feed by increasing the level of wheat-offer and reducing the maize content. Because usually one of the problems we do have, even within that hot season, is that we have this more incidence of fatty liver hemorrhagic syndrome, and a lot of fat will build up in the abdominal region. These are things one could do to avoid, the problem of heat stress. Some also recommend the use of herbal or synthetic immunomodulators and electrolytes. The reason for this is because it's been shown that birds tend to lose the level of vitamin C in their system more during the hot weathers. So people try to say, okay, if that be the case, maybe we should be using things like vitamin C and all that. And not just that alone, vitamin C plays a key role when it comes to the immunity of the animals. So the immune system also will be affected. There will be a drop even in the level of the white blood cells, which play a key role in terms of the immunity. So having this at the back of the mind, some people suggest the use of either synthetic or herbal immunomodulators and electrolytes. Now, from my little experience and from what we've also read in literature, there is this chemical called ammonium chloride. Ammonium chloride has a way of helping to reverse the problem of alkalosis. Because when you dissolve it in the drinking water, it makes the water to be somewhat acidic, and it helps to ensure that the increasing level of pH, which is occurring because of hyperventilation, is brought under control. Then the quality of eggshell during the hot period can be maintained by using sodium carbonate at maximum of 4 kilograms per ton of feed. This we have also done too on some farms. Now, at this period,
He has gone off again. He has gone off again. Well, let's give him some good time. Usman, is there anything you can say on Oladele till he comes
to avoid excess of sodium?
Okay.
Hello?
Oh,
can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear him. We can hear you.
Okay. So as to avoid excess of sodium, that's why it should not exceed, the sodium chloride in the feed should not exceed 2.5. But the sodium carbonate's key role is to ensure that the shell quality is maintained. Now, another way of managing this situation is to provide fans and foggers in the pen. As you can see this picture here, this is an example of industrial fans used in long pens. I think this one is, I think a 3 or a 5. I think this is a three-tier cage, a very long cage. In such a pen, even though you have very good air coming in from both sides, it's very important to use industrial fans and foggers so that as the fan blows, the little drops of water that would have landed on the birds will also be evaporated to also reduce the heat on the birds. Now, it is also important that birds should be given cool water to drink. In hot afternoons, flush out the very warm water in the water lines. Usually once it starts approaching 12, we do advise some farmers flush out the water, pump fresh one straight from the borehole, and then give. And then not just doing that alone, there are some farms where they have deep freezers that are dedicated to producing ice blocks. These ice blocks must be used, and at the same time, care must be taken so that the nylon bags around them will not block the nipple drinkers. It is also advisable for farmers to use white water storage tanks. Most tanks that you see on farms are maybe color black. From our little knowledge in physics, black has a way of absorbing heat. So if white is used, it has a way of reflecting heat. And with this, it's a better option. And it's also important to ensure that there's adequate space between pens and avoid overstocking of birds, which I had mentioned earlier. In terms of space between pens, the standard is to have like 15 to 16 meters between pen A and pen B. But we rarely see such things these days. So the pattern of construction on farms also are some of the problems that bring about challenges being faced, especially during the hot weather. Now, you can see from this picture here, the farmer here is using these white tanks. We call them Alimet tanks because they are using bringing in liquid methionine. So after the use of the methionine, they buy them from different places, wash them, and use them as water storage tanks, as you can see in that picture. If you look at this cage, one of the things I usually do is if I look at the cell, I look at this space here, I try to count, if I can count up to 10 of these, 1, 2, 3, like that, up to 10, I will know that that space is adequate for 5 birds maximum. However, that is also a function of what happens in the pen. If it is in a pen where there are 3 rows of layers, I prefer that the birds that are in the middle should be stocked at 4 birds per cell, while those at the edge where they have direct link with the ventilation, those ones are busy, please. I think it's not like I know that in lecture. Hello, sorry about it.
Volume, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was saying that if birds are in cages, it is advisable that for this kind of cages that can take maximum of 5, the 5 per cell should be done in the rows that are close to the sides of the pen where they have air coming in directly. But the central row should have a lower stocking density so that they won't experience so much problem in hot weather. This is an open-sided broiler pen. It's a farm somewhere in Oladele. It takes up to 10,000 birds. If you look closely, you will see that it has enough space. And then the way the walls are low enough to allow enough air to enter. Unfortunately, I do see some farms here in UNIJOS where the number of courses of the blocks are even up to 2 or 3, and you won't have enough ventilation in such a pen. This is an environmentally controlled environment housing system. It was in this kind of system that I said somebody had some broilers and there was power failure, especially
He has dropped off again.
Yeah, we lost your voice.
Osman, you can be talking until, so we don't have a space.
Yes, Chief, I think one thing, if you can hear me, we have...
Can you hear me?
Yes,
yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, okay. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I was saying...
This conclusion is trying...
This conclusion is concluding on you.
He is trying to conclude. Okay, yes, if I may talk, actually, this latter part of the presentation, I think is more beneficial to farmers because they are getting the practical hands-on on what is supposed to be, especially in terms of feeding time, in terms of number of blocks at the window level. There are so many factors into it, but if I may know, I live in UNIJOS for close to 20 years or more. And in those days, the temperature was not as it is now because of this climate change. So in those days, seeing 3 course blocks in the poultry fen or 4 course blocks in a poultry fen is not bad. But now farmers, I think, need to adjust because of the prevailing circumstances of the climate change. Even our pen houses at Mbri Ibom, Zen, if you look at them, most of them are 3 course block, in some places up to 4. But I think now they have to reduce them and adjust according to prevailing circumstances. Then maybe Dotun also, when it comes to these things, even in the cages, even if the house is properly ventilated, you will notice that those beds, especially a house that have 4 cages, row of cages, you find that those in the middle experience more heat stress than those ones that are close to windows. So some farmers used to reduce the number of beds per fen in the middle rows. For example, if I put in 3 beds per cell, then when it comes to middle row, you have to make it
reduce.
Okay, can you hear me, Dotun?
Yeah,
okay, has come. Okay, continue.
Yes,
continue.
it was a farmer that was disturbing me on phone, so I had to call the person.
It's okay.
So,
it's okay.
Yes, sorry about that, sir. Now, in conclusion, I was saying that heat within the environment remains a stress factor in poultry production. And it's important for managers of poultry farms to always plan annually ahead of the hot months of the year to prevent avoidable losses. One of the major things I think I overheard Dr. Ibe, I think if I got him right, was that there's a way you should plan your stocking of birds such that when they should peak in their production, it should not fall within the heat period so that you won't be losing. Then I remember in about 2 or 3 slides away from this, I was talking
what about the layers?
Yes.
This one you are talking about broilers.
No, I've talked about layers too.
You can even stop broiler production if you can't manage them during the heat period.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
You can raise them in the hot period.
For layers, what I normally I think better for the farmers is to stock their beds about December, January. By the time you brood it, when the heat period comes around March, April, May, the beds did not accumulate much fat and we have less mortality, and they'll start producing at the time when rainfall is about to start. And from there, if the beds continue producing up to the January or March the following year, you find that most of the time you have recouped your investment. Because from that June or July up to March, the weather there is relatively not as bad as when it is around this 3 months or 4 months period back. Anyway, when it comes to discussion, we'll talk about that.
Now, when it comes to discussion, there are a lot of pet talks on this, honestly.
Yes, so
can help the farmers.
The planning for the hot months is very, very important. And a few slides away, I remember I was talking about the stocking densities in the pen, especially if they are laying birds in cages. The ones that are closer to the sides of the pen, if they are kept in the cell at 5 birds per cell, the ones that are in the middle, especially if it's a 3-row pen, should be reduced to maybe like 4 because of heat
Doctor,
stress.
go ahead and conclude. When we come to discussion, we'll talk about that. Okay. Go ahead and conclude.
So every aspect from the structure of pens to management practices should be targeted at minimizing effect of heat on poultry performance. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Oladele, please give just 5 minutes discussion.
A recap.
I recap, and then
Professor Oladele, let me acknowledge the presence of these important people on this platform. You may know that one, we have Professor Abdulkadir Jinedu. I may call him an academician, an astute academician of public health, a politician. He has been 2 times commissioner of both Agric Ministry and Animal Health Ministry in Sokoto State. In fact, he's immediate past commissioner of Animal Health in the Sokoto State.
He's really
and
welcome.
He's a very
Welcome,
big farmer.
Yeah,
Oh.
we are going to engage you next week to moderate.
Yeah, he's going to also.
So we have captured you. We're going to use him next week to moderate.
I beg, Chief, let me finish now.
Yes. No, I'm just trying to let him know.
Yeah, he owns a farm here. Also, he has been a farmer for a long time. Since I came to Sokoto, he has been managing his own farm, and he's among the big poultry farmers in Sokoto State. And also, I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Abubakar Okoko. He has been a Royal Highness, a farmer, and a retired senior civil servant in Kebbi State. He's also a farmer. He's on this platform. I'm sure he may make his contribution. Yeah. Then we have, we have a very, upcoming younger ones, Dr. Collins Odechukwu, Dr. Debbie Ishola. They are all my former students and making waves in the industry. And we have Dr. Mubarak Bello. He has been immediate past president of Nigerian Veterinary Medical Association, Sokoto State chapter. Dr. Mubarak Bello is on this platform. And okay, that's other ones at the and Samaila Shafiu, he has been with us here. He's a MD of Jargaba Feed. And they're all on this platform. And I'm sure when it comes to contribution, they'll make their own contribution. Professor Oladele, please, can you take over?
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Musa. And again, I welcome all of these eminent persons here. We are privileged to have you. Dr. Oladele, thank you so much for this lecture. It's been quite engaging, interesting. And we'll move on. Before we move on into questions and discussion, because I know it will generate a lot of discussion, let me just have a recap. Like Dr. Oladele said, we're talking about the heat stress, we are talking about management of heat in this environment. We cannot do anything about the temperature. We cannot do anything about relative humidity, but we can maneuver around it for survival, like we do for humans. So we need to do for our animals that cannot do it themselves. And here we are talking about poultry. So it lets us know that temperatures around 34 degrees Celsius, relative humidity about 40, the birds are fine. They lose heat as they should. But anything higher than 100, anything going towards 100% relative humidity will cause problems, and temperature higher than that. So he was telling us, he also told us about predisposing factors like the pen orientation, how the pens are built, that it's better to go north-south rather than east-west to reduce the rays of sunlight that comes into the pen, the amount of sunlight. He talked about inadequate water supply will predispose the birds because they will want to drink a lot of water when it's hot. So we need to give them a lot of water. Then overstocking. Overstocking is a predisposing factor. Poor ventilation, it is one. And then he gave us the signs of heat stress. One major one being the panting, when they lose excess carbon dioxide, going into systemic alkalosis. Also the hanging on of the wings and some others. And he also went into what do we do. This, I can see that this lecture largely dwelt on management. What do we do? He said we should prevent early entry of sun rays into the house as much as possible. And he mentioned some things that could be done, like the overhang on the side of the pen, or even using raffia palms and things like that. Then we should be giving our birds, we should be feeding them during the cool periods of the day, that will help. Also manipulating the feed, the constituent of the feed, like inclusion of immunomodulators, use reducing calorie, giving vitamin C and things like that. So we should, and other inputs, other feed inputs. Also the use of fans and foggers for farmers that can afford it. It's very good. We should not also give them warm water. We might need to refresh the water during the day so that birds will drink them. Birds don't drink warm water. They will just be looking at the water. They won't drink it. So it's as good as not giving them water. So it's good to refresh the water. And then he also talked about, he mentioned a few of the long-term remedies that the farmer should have put in place even before the farm is fully built, like the distance between the pen houses being up to about 15 meters, which we rarely see in any case. And largely the lecture I see has been on management. I think we will talk about other things as we move on. So once again, I want to say thank you to Dr. Oladele for this.
Let me say something.
Yeah.
On the house orientation,
yeah,
it's supposed to be east-west. So that in the morning, so that east-west, so that the sun will move across the roof down to the west. If it is north-south in the morning, the sun will hit them from the east. Sorry, from the east. I'm talking about north-south orientation. And then if it is in the evening, it will hit them from the west. But if the sun flows to the roof on top, down the line, I think, when intelligent people talk, and most times their head are knocking up and down.
Maybe you didn't get my statement, sir.
Okay.
What I was trying to say is that the long axis of the pen should not face the east-west direction where the sun rises.
Yes.
That's exactly what we said, Doctor.
Yes, but when they recap and they said, we see that statement you made might, it might have some.
But I believe you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
So you are dealing with some farmers who might not be as technical as you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So in that case, you should explain it in such a way that everybody, every mortal, even will understand.
It is the short axis that should face the east-west.
And east-west, yes.
While the long axis will face the north-south.
North-south, Even for me, the way I even advise farmers, when you're about to start, go stand on that land. I mean, spend time on the land. Over time, you will know where sun is coming from, because this north, south, east, west, many people do not even know what it is. Over time, you know where the rays come from. Not only the sun rays, even the wind. You know which direction wind blows in that land, that piece of land you have. And
but you see, when you are getting builders, if your farm is not, let me assume, if your farm is commercial, you need to bring in experts.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Even before the feasibility, at the level
you bring
of feasibility.
Experts to know the orientation of your farm.
Yeah.
As we discussion continues, there are a lot of dimensions to we are going to discuss.
Yeah, I think let us give the participants
I want to hand over to Professor Musa to take us through the questions. Yes.
We are doing it together, Prof.
No, at least this section now.
We should put, yes. I think Dr. Dotun has done a very good job. And I think the farmers, these lectures, I think, was basically designed for farmers and big-time farmers, not as academic distance. I think the only thing I will say that maybe this lecture, because we need to present it when we are about to experience the thing. We know that now is the rainy season, and very soon we are going to enter Harmattan, which all this period, the temperature is likely to be low. We normally experience heat stress right from March up to June, July. At that time when farmers make most of the losses. And I think this lecture, if it can be presented again that time or modified again at that time, the farmers will benefit more, because at the time the farmers are likely to experience the problems. Having said that, we need also to include a lot of pictures if it's something designed for farmers. Of course, the academician, or those in academic line, will understand all your presentation very well. But the farmers need pictorial things to make them comprehend, assimilate, and get what we are trying to say. Because all these narrow and wide and longer, if there's a picture of pen house, by the time you show this, what we mean should be facing this is what we should. All this issue the chief is trying to make will not have been there. I will have gotten there. Then, as I said, we have many eminent farmers here with us. Most of them are in the heat front zone. There's a lady here is very active in poultry farming, Asma Uban Allah. She has been a poultry farmer active in poultry affairs here in Sokoto State. She's here with us.
We are not getting questions on the chat box. Please advise them to question us, query us on the chat box.
When you say
maybe they
farmers,
want to raise their hands.
how do you think the farmers will write questions? The farmers
Maybe
are
they
not
want to
tell
speak.
you.
Our colleagues here. Our colleagues here can ask questions.
So we'll talk. So it's now open to participants. If you have any question, observation, or addition you want to make for us, maybe we'll start with the floor. Maybe open the floor for us. I know you have experienced heat stress in your farm some years back, and you can be able to share to us what measures you have taken to address that.
Professor Abdul Kadir, please.
Thank you very much, Prof. Bongon Jos, or Bongon Albungu. As I usually find it.
Magana Banja, Magana Banja.
Magana Shibekari, Bafa.
Magana
Magana.
When he came back from Jos, I said we cannot allow you to just stay. We have to give you that title of Bongon Albungu. Yes. Thank you very much. And let me also say that this is a very good topic, and I'm pretty sure.
Oh God.
We are not hearing him well.
We are not hearing you, sir, Prof.
Yes. Okay, you're not hearing me well?
No, we are hearing you right now. We are now.
Okay, I said Professor Musa, when he came in from Jos, realized the precarious situation we have been facing in Sokoto. When Prof was presenting a very interesting lecture, he mentioned a temperature of 34. In Sokoto, we used to have a temperature of up to 46 degrees Celsius. Poultry system. I have lost lots of birds, devised several methods of containment. One area which I think he didn't touch well, or just lightly, was the issue of feed. I could remember more than 20 years ago, Vita visited my farm with their team, and we had a discussion. And I said one of the problems with their feed is that they don't consider hot regions when they are
formulating
their feed, and when it actually affects it, and that is the main reason why you are having prolapse. And they took note of that and made sure that they effected some corrections in terms of their feed. So I think feed companies should look at the temperatures of these regions in trying to formulate their feed. Secondly, we need to also note that there are many methods that you have to use. I have seen some of the recommendations, but one of the most important things is to know the time you feed your birds. In this part of the country, what we usually do is to start feeding our birds as early as 4 to 5 a.m. and we withdraw it around 11, maximum before 12 o'clock. I will not feed them till around 5:36 upwards. They can eat throughout the night, because at that time, you'll have less mortality. Again, by the side of your poultry house, you need to water the place very well around 10 or 11, so that by the time the heat starts, when the sun hits the ground, it will be a cool weather that will be going into the poultry house rather than the real hot sun. Again, you also have to make sure that the water is cool, either by putting ice blocks or covering your tanks with some touched materials and be pouring some water on it so it can reduce the heat stress. Another thing that we also do is that of, apart from fungus, which some you cannot avoid, is to use this, Osman, you know, we have them in my farm. What do you call it? This sprayer. Yes, you have sprayer and also not only sprayers.
He called it fungus. He called it
sprinklers. Sprinklers. We have sprinklers.
Yes.
My wife just reminded me, we have sprinklers that we also use. This can seriously reduce the heat stress.
Yes.
In fact, when you have the sprinklers, it could reduce it to the barest minimum. And it has actually helped greatly. Overstocking is also one of them. But in most instances, the timing of putting your beds has to be considered. In Sokoto, Kebbi, and Zamfara areas, the temperature is at times unbearable even to humans. When Usman was back after almost 25 years in Jos, he had to adjust.
Thank you for hitting him hard. Usman, when are you?
He used to
Usman, when are
bath
you
12
giving me
times. He told me 12 times in a day. But later,
Prof, we are don't start again. Oh, I don't call
so
you to.
when he came in, I had to call Professor Kenneth to order and said, bro, you have to take it easy. But later on, he adjusted and was at least taking one or two times bath in a day from 12. So the temperature is actually very, very serious. And I think, as Professor Osman suggested, Professor Dr. Charles Ibe, the lecture can be repeated when the heat season is really approaching so that farmers can be saved. It's really very discouraging when you find people losing their money. Most of them will be out of it. As for broilers, you have to take extra caution to ensure that you have a sustainable broiler production during the season. In most instances, we advise you terminate that. Maybe you put them in large quantity, slaughter them, and put them in your freezers, and then you make sure that you sell them off during the heat season, because terribly, most of the majors may contain them very little. So thank you very much, Dr. Charles Ibe and Professor Osman, and also the presenter, for your job well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want
Prof.
you to accept on air that you are going to be the moderator next week, Saturday, as we discuss Rabies Day.
We'll communicate, because Dr. Charles, I'll be on transit by weekend. I don't know my flight schedule, but I'll communicate. I think I should be free. Okay. I'll communicate to you soonest. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Yeah, Usman, I think you give me some audience along the line to spell out one or two things, because I didn't start. I started my veterinary practice as an ambulator, and I started dealing with smallholders for farmers, poultry farmers, before coming to commercial, and before then I disappeared to be in marketing. So if you can give me audience now, there are a lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes farmers do. You know, you're talking about tanks. Some of them use metal tanks. You know what it means in heat conduction. And then some of them place their tanks outside. And some of them, the number of tiers, cage tiers, depends on the height of your house. I've seen a farmer, I think one of the wives of the former chief CJ of the Federation. I was consulting her smallholder farm. She went and put a 3-tier cage. Close to it is a metal zinc roof, not sealed. Not as I was having no ceiling. Before you know it, one day, by the time I came, the first layer, the topmost layer of beds have gone by 80%. And then the type of roofing sheet you need. There are roofing sheets that conduct heat directly, almost 95% into the pane. There are some that reflect. There are some that absorb the heat. Keep it, like asbestos will keep your heat. Towards the end of the day, they'll start dropping those heat inside the pane and start killing the birds. So the reflected roofs are far better than those. The radiant heat will conduct straight down the line. And then in terms of stock density, you know, we're dealing with different strains of birds. The broiler, some broilers you keep in the cage, by heat stress will kill all of them. The growers, that's the pullers at the growing period to the laying period. And the more they add weight to themselves, the more the heat stress is very difficult on them because one, they can't be able to flap the wings to carry their body up to down. And then when you're putting your cage, all this you are talking about cell, there is no cell, there's no cage I have seen in this country that they might be in India. You cannot, no Indian cages that accommodate 5 birds per cell can be okay for them. Please, if they give you 5 cells as specification, 5 birds per cell as specification, narrow it down to 4. If they give you 4, narrow it down to 3. And then depending on the weather, that's another thing, the weather period. If your birds are in the hot zone, please, as much as possible, have a decongesting pen. Because one thing I found out is that the heat stress on the layers in the cages, the incident on it and the stress is far more than those on the deep litter. If you can decongest your beds per cell, maybe have a holding. I mean, it's only before from March by May. By early week of May or middle May, you have run out, you have disappeared from the stress period in the north. I don't know about the south, I don't know about the west. And if you're having your beds in the north and you are transiting from the dry phase, dry season to rainy season, and that is when the humidity, and you look at your hygrometer is 80%. These are the very terrible period. Humid heat is more terrible than dry heat. If you decongest your beds during that heat stress period, then after that, when rain comes, you can bring them back. That means you must have a holding pen that can be able to hold them. Then when you come about broiler, broiler is, that one is, the heat on the broiler is whether it is on cages or on deep litter. In the north, don't even try it to put broiler in the cages for whatever circumstance. For, you know, some of them will raise unless you have some maybe ventilators that will ventilate, the artificial ventilators. Some operations you can raise them in cages from day 1 to slaughter weight. That's okay. But if you don't take care, if the incident of heat stress on the broilers is on the layers is so high, you imagine what it will do to broilers if you don't take time. Then the width of your hands for layers in cages, like what Dotun said, you don't need to put build a 4-line battery cage system. Maybe you stop at 3 or you stop at 2. In fact, I would advise you stop at 2. It might cost you a little bit more because, see, the more the width of your house, the more the incident of heat to those at the center is so high, and you cannot escape it. So some people have used Zana to cover the roof, and then you know that the problem about heat stress is the radiant heat from the sun. You can use insulators, you know, maybe once in 2 years, but it's very dangerous because it can bring in rats or whatever, lizard or whatever. You can cover them, maybe 2 cycles, you just remove them. Or after a cycle, you remove them and put another one. It helps to drop them. There are a lot of trees that grow in the north, like mango trees, a lot of trees that you can use to shade. I mean, I think I will stop at now. Maybe I'll talk by the end.
Thank you, Chief. Let us quickly take the comment chat section. Dr. Collins.
What is he saying? Yeah, Prof, you're not talking. Are we frozen?
Hello.
Hello, Prof.
I can't even see the chat. Said messages sent him. It looks like he's frozen. I'm trying to look at the chat question.
Look at the chat and be able to bring out what he wanted to say.
Please.
But
No, I cannot see what he's trying.
Yeah, but on what he was saying
if-
about bringing this topic during the hot period, I think we should bring it up again.
Okay.
Not only bringing it up, there are some where my company is trying to bring a product that can deal with heat stress and egg laying. And the component is betaine. Betaine is an anti-heat stress, anti-heat stress chemical. We're trying to see what our partners can formulate a soluble powder that contains betaine and other elements.
Okay, I've seen the question on the chat.
Okay.
He said, what role do the combination of acetaminophen, glucose, and ascorbic acid have in combating heat stress? As the presenter clearly countered the role of vitamin C, please kindly help elaborate, as we have drug combinations with above ingredients and getting results. Please, how is vitamin C a potential immunosuppressor, as you highlighted in your presentation? Okay. Dotun here, but what is the why is it difficult to get 90% production in the heat stress zone? What's the way forward?
Let me quickly answer that question.
Yes.
I think the fellow did not hear what I said.
I think so.
I never mentioned that vitamin C is immunosuppressor. I never mentioned.
It's a modulator.
Yes, I agree.
Yes, it helps. It supports the immunity. That we know. So that should be corrected. I think I should make that clear. Then you were saying something about 90% what?
Why is it? So
why
is it
can
difficult?
you not maintain 90% production?
Get 90% in heat stress zone.
Yes.
Now, if we are to ask this question, the heat stress, is it only in the north or in both north and the south? In the southwest, I've been able to help farmers raise birds with egg production of 90% and above for a period of 5 months. However, in terms of effect of heat, there are many things that one can do. There's no doubt about the fact that heat stress will influence their feed intake. When it gets very hot, they tend to take more of cool water and less of feed. The only way you can maintain a very good production is to ensure that you feed the birds during the cooler hours of the day. Like I know of a particular farm in Owodiegba. At some point, I told them to start feeding by 5 a.m. because the boys, the farm attendants, lived on the farm. So it was easier, not that they would be transporting themselves from their various homes. 5 a.m., they will put on the generator, start feeding the birds. They will take their feed, consume it up to maybe around 11 a.m. And then they will change the water, give them more of cool water. And after that, when it starts getting towards evening, they will serve them another feed and give them light into the night again. So these ways of manipulating it can help to ensure good production. However, like I said, in some cases, we've had to use sodium carbonate or sodium bicarbonate into the feed to ensure the shell qualities are maintained too. So these are some of the things we do. There is no doubt about the fact that heat, stress, will definitely have a way of affecting egg production. But it is possible to have a way around it and still maintain very good and profitable egg production. So that is what I can say on that.
Okay, thank you. There's another question here that says, is it a good practice to spray birds during transportation?
Okay. Well, the essence of spraying, when you spray the birds during transportation or before transportation and during transportation, as they move, the air itself will begin to blow on the birds, and there will be this kind of evaporative cooling as the water begins to evaporate. It cools their body. So it's a good method. It's a good thing. That's my own view. And I think it really helps so many farmers, especially when they are selling their spent layers or they are selling their point of lay.
Yeah, Prof, we have two questions from the YouTube. We have
YouTube. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first question, Dotun, is, please, I need more elaboration on the quality of feed during the heat stress. Then the second question by Anna is, what is your advice on use of ice blocks in their drinking water as a way to manage heat stress, sir?
Okay.
Yeah.
On the quality of feed in heat stress, one of the major things that is important to note is that if the energy content of that feed is high and the birds are consuming such feed, the basal metabolic energy that will be generated will also be high. And if the environmental temperature is high also, it's like you have a situation where the heat generated in the body of the animal and the heat in the environment, if the heat in the environment, for instance, is also high, and that in the body generated is also high, you can imagine the pressure the birds will begin to feel, because they won't be able to lose as much heat as possible as it would be in a cold weather. Therefore, it is not advisable to allow the density of the energy to be too high during the hot season. It's usually during the cold weather, we can say, okay, you can step up the energy of the feed. But in hot weather, it is better to reduce the energy level. That's why I was talking about, especially for those who are making the feed by themselves, the ratio of the maize to the concentrate and the wheat offer. If, for instance, somebody uses, let's say, 520 kilograms of maize per ton of feed, 300 kg of concentrate, which consists of the soya, limestone premixes and all that, and the remaining one being wheat offer. In the very hot period, it is advisable to drop the level of maize, maybe to about 485 kg. And then what that implies is that the level of wheat offer will increase maybe above 200 kg in a ton. So it is important to kind of dilute the feed, if I will use that word, dilute the energy level of the feed, so that the energy that will be generated even in their body will not be such that it will be too high, when we compare with the environmental temperature, and then bringing about heat stress on the birds. So it's important to drop the energy during the hot period.
Yeah,
it's about the quantity.
Let me add something here. Some text has talked about a vegetable and animal fat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's some literature has talked about animal fat and vegetable fat, increasing them to drop the energy.
Its effect on energy, yes.
To drop the carbohydrate, energy from the carbohydrate. Anyway, you can. Before Chan has something to say. Okay.
Then I will also add to that. Please let me talk about that too. That when we recommend that they should reduce the calorie content of feed, many farmers are apprehensive about drop in production. So we always also recommend that you jack up the protein a little bit when you drop energy. But I cannot, by the tip of the finger, say this is the amount you should jack it up with. But you can consult your nutritionist. But usually when energy is dropped, you need to bring up protein a little bit.
Yeah.
Before we go, Tom Chan, Doctor, please discuss about the ice block effect.
Yeah, the ice block is very important because naturally, if the water is really warm, the water intake will drop. And we know the importance of the birds drinking water when the environmental temperature is high. So that lower temperature of the water, in a way, attracts them to drink more water, and that will help them. Just as it is in humans, on a very hot day, most of the time, you won't be thinking of taking hot tea on a very hot afternoon. You would always be looking for something cool that will calm your system. The same thing applies to the birds. So using of ice block is very okay. The only thing is that the nylon bags, in which the blocks are, should be properly removed to avoid a situation where there will be blockage of the nipple. Because you are trying to solve a problem, you also need to avoid creating a new one. because if the nipples are blocked, they can't even have access to that cold water. So it's important to use ice block.
Yeah. And in addition, that is the water should be cool, not cold.
Yeah.
If it is cold, they will predispose to respiratory tract infection. So it should be cool water and not cold water.
No, but in the hot weather, the effect on the hot weather on those water will be so high that even before you know it, it will just the temperature will shut down. But one thing we found out is that for those of us, we talk about those who put their tanks outside. Then he showed us a picture about the farm that has white tank inside. Beautiful.
Yeah.
But we found out that there's a conversion of heat from potential energy. Those height are the water is at a high potential. Now, as they're going down the line, they are under kinetic energy. And that kinetic energy can easily be converted to heat energy during the hot period. Because there's no way they're not dissipating the heat. They're not dissipating the temperature. So out because of external temperature. So what we find out that during the hot season, the lines are always hot. So on hourly basis, be flushing those, be flushing them out. When you open it, and make sure you have a line that you can flush out. When you open it and you start flushing, you see hot water coming out. And at that time, the birds will not drink. So what you do is that as you are flushing it, by the time the hot water finishes to come out, the cold water will come. You can close it again. Yeah. And because of the height, it's easy to flush naturally. The gravity will flush it out for you. Okay, yes. Continue.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Chang Mbafo.
And Dr. Chang.
Dr. Chang, you have the floor.
Yourself. Good.
Yeah. Thank you very much, the chief coordinator and all the members of this panel. I'm really impressed with the topic of today and the way it has been presented. But I wish to make a proposal as well as ask a question. My proposal is that the coordinator should try and invite policymakers such that they should listen to these beautiful lessons and try to implement it as policies with respect to our different regions or even districts. Because when we see what farmers do with birds, sometimes we feel for them and we equally feel for the birds. In cases of overheating, it is sometimes caused by poor lighting systems. They use bush lamps and not electricity, as we have seen in very big farms here. And the bush lamps equally contribute to the heat stress because sometimes in the night, the birds are overheated and some of them can even die out of suffocation. So if there is a policy, either at district or regional levels, to be able to moderate poultry farmers how to apply the lighting system in their poultry farms, I think it will be good, both to the farmers and to the birds. The farmers will not economically lose too much of birds, neither will the birds just die as a result of suffocation, excess heat, and poor ventilation.
I think she's talking about brooding phase, at the brooding phase when they use bush lime for breeding. And then in that case, they use kerosene and the combustibility of kerosene is very poor. That means instead of combusting to give carbon dioxide and the water, which is then they will combust. They'll combust to give carbon monoxide, which is the soot, and these things are choking factors. I think that's what she's trying to do. Anyway, you are from Cameroon. We have our different environment here. Most of these things are in the YouTube. We push, like I have over 6 platforms. Some of our policymakers are in this platform. What we do is that we push it to the platform so that they can watch and then view. Okay. And John Idu might be another commissioner minister tomorrow. He can be, because for once a commissioner can be a minister. He
Yes,
might take it up as God continues to bless him. Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you. And I think she was referring to regulation of poultry production and all of that, which I know even in Nigeria, there was something coming up. So we hope over time we get there, where government will be involved. We have regulators who visit the farms and see what they're doing. I hope we get there someday. But then there's something else also. Somebody suggesting that experts should produce heat-tolerant breeds of birds and that are less prone. And I want to just say that we are the ones that went to bring the white man's chicken. God has given us our own. He has given us our own. They may be less productive and all of that. But I believe we just have to focus a little more on our indigenous chickens. And we will get more results than all the problems we're having. The white man that bred this for his own country does not have all this problem because they were bred for them. So it's just another challenge for us in productivity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You watch, for some of us who grew up in the villages will know that we have a naked neck chicken.
Neck chickens, yeah.
These are environmentally modulated genetic factors that will help these birds to withstand heat stress. Then there are some chicken, I don't know the Yorubas whether they have it. We call it abukein. They're almost hairless.
Different types, yes.
They have scanty hair. All these things are environmental moderated, genetically modulated forces to make these birds withstand heat stress. Because the more the hair, the more the stress. In the Middle East, there's this breed they call Kabir breed. Kabir breed, that's the Middle East can be hot. It's it has
a featherless breed.
It's a naked neck.
Featherless is from Israel. Yeah.
Necklace. They are naked neck. But anyway, if we can adapt those forces down here, we can breed heat tolerant strain of chicken. That one I know. But the only thing is that our breeders and our modulators, our scientists, our technologists should put their heads together. Because from what I just said, the one I noticed in the village, those with very scanty hair, those with naked neck, you can bring them up to their genes.
Yes.
Supported by the environment.
Yeah, I think there has been an attempt somewhere. Is it FUNAB? There's a scientist they are working. They have a group of people there, and they've been able to cross the local chicken with the exotic ones, and I think they are getting results. I have Dr. Nchang again.
No, he has asked. He has said what he wanted to say.
She had a question she wanted to ask. She said comment and question. So it was only.
You already did.
My question is, you have talked about watering the birds during transportation, but when they are at the level of day-old chicks and you have to travel a distance of about 300 kilometers, how do you water the day-old chicks? How do you manage heat stress for such young birds and for a long distance? Please, can I have an answer?
Now, for day-old chicks, they even need the warmth. They need a temperature of about 31 to 33 degrees. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
They need warmth.
I'm getting you, doctor.
The day-old chicks need warmth, not even a cold environment. So there are vehicles that are specially designed for that, and under a standard system, those kind of vehicles should also have indicators of the temperature so that if under any circumstance it is rising higher than 33 degrees Celsius, you will have a way of cooling it down to within 31 to 33. But what we see in Nigeria is that oftentimes people do not follow this. Hello?
I'm getting you, doctor.
If you look at the pattern with which birds are transported from Ibadan to Jos, they will load them in the cartons, the way the transporters will tie the whole cartons, and it's something funny. I mean, when you see what is happening, the birds are passing through a lot too. The only thing is that most of them will try to move in the night. And if in the night, if rain falls, you know the implication also. So the means of transportation, there are standard ways of transportation, but we find out that people do all manner of things just to transport them. But they do not need any form of water to sprinkle on them, because at that time of their life, they even need more warmth than any other time. Thank you.
Yeah, Collins wants to say something.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Dr. Collins Udechukwu.
Udechukwu, don't murder my language.
Udechukwu.
Before I start calling
Sorry.
your more Lade.
Thank you.
So sorry about that. Yeah.
The team. I actually want to have a question, or rather a clarity to the presenter, and I want to start by apologizing for not getting him when he talked about the vitamin C. Although I felt some other aspect of my question was not addressed. The issue of acetaminophen, paracetamol, in heat-prone zones. I really wanted him to. Is it advisable to continue to use paracetamol? And then Sam, coming acetaminophen. Then the final question I would just want him to add flesh to is the issue of feeding these birds. In terms of now, we had a situation in a farm where we realized that these birds are actually not laying to the proportion we want, and we had a challenge. By the time we opened one or two, we realized that there were fats all around the beds. They were not proper. The stocking density is a bit fair in the sense that you have 3 beds per cell. Now, in such situation, what you cannot point your hand, you are seeing fat, you are saying you are dealing with fatty liver syndrome, and there is also issue of looking at the timing at which this thing is happening. So as a consultant or as a consultant in such situation, how do we manage the feed? Because we're already having a drop in production. We want to reduce the energy level in the feed. We also want to maintain a level of production vis-a-vis burning down those fats. How do we manage this cluster of situation? Thank you.
Okay, let me start from the issue of the birds that you say had high level of abdominal fat, and their egg production is also not in the best level. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, and you are looking at it that, okay, if the weather is hot, we are advised to reduce the energy content or drop the quantity of feed to avoid further mortalities. Now, what do we do? Now, we usually advise, if such a farmer is especially producing his or her feed, you can add something called choline chloride. Choline chloride, the 50% choline chloride at about 1.2 kilogram per ton of feed will go a long way to help burn up the fats. In fact, one of the things we usually do is, for those who formulate their feed, by the time we look at the situation on the farm, we help formulate, and then we will tell them that you will maintain the use of that choline chloride until maybe 1 month to the time you want to sell them as spent layers. Why? We don't want fat to build up, because it has its own implications too. At the same time, we also want the farmer to have his birds to be able to be sold at the best price possible. Because if they have lost so much of the abdominal fat up to the time they are to be sold, people that want to buy them will say, these birds, they don't have weight. That's what people will look at. But you need to balance it. Reduce the fat by using the choline chloride, gain good production. You don't need to significantly drop the energy level at that point in time if the problem you are having is a build-up of fat. You understand what I'm saying? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We are coming with a product.
Yes.
We are coming with products that have betaine and choline chloride.
Yes.
So
that's
we're
what I'm about saying.
Formulations. Yes.
My network is back.
Okay.
There are some liquids some other preparations that also contain choline chloride and that betaine that Dr. Ibe mentioned, and some other very useful additives which could help to ensure that the birds will perform very well. So that is that on the issue of the feed, fat issue, how you can manage it to bring it down and ensure that there's no buildup of fat. And at the same time, you don't need to kind of drastically reduce the level of the energy because you know that it will further reduce production. Then you were talking about acetaminophen, which is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Now,
sir. Yes, sir.
yeah, it's used in poultry. Basically, we use it more like an analgesic, you understand, in humans. If you are using it in poultry, I really do not see the strong rationale behind its use as a kind of anti-stress, particularly in terms of managing heat, except you are looking at it that, yes, these birds, because of the heat, they could be having some kind of maybe some body pains or whatever. So it could play some role in that area. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but it doesn't really directly deal with managing the heat, the external heat that is the major problem. In terms of reducing stocking density, using of fans, ensuring very good ventilation, all those are other means that will directly reduce the impact of the heat. But within the body of the animal, if it is stressed, of course, the acetaminophen could help to some extent. And I've seen preparations like that, particularly even in cattle. But it's always good to also remind ourselves that it's not all species of animal that they can use acetaminophen for. I hope you are aware of that, Dr. Udechukwu.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Like which animal you dare not use this kind of acetaminophen for?
Cats.
You don't try it in cat. I've seen a farmer that thought he was doing well by giving it to his cat. When he now told me what he had administered, I just told him straight, you killed your cats, you know? So we need to be careful with some of these preparations, you know, as they come. People will add so many things together and give you the impression that they are super products. You need to be wise in how you use them. I think that's my take on that.
That brings me to an experience I had when I was starting my practice. One of my colleagues actually didn't know, unknowingly went and used a preparation meant for cattle that has chloramphenicol to treat fowl typhoid. And as she was injecting the birds, they were dying. That product has tripelalanine, which is an antihistamine. And those antihistamine are not meant for chicken. But because she saw chloramphenicol, she thought that it's good to treat that. Agreed. So when you see some preparations meant for higher animal, don't try it on lower animal until you look at the main content. And then you look at the physiological intersection between those higher animal and smaller animal. Agreed, we use some dog products to treat, we use some human products to treat dog. But in those line of treatment, there is some physiological intersection. The cat he's talking about, biochemically in the liver, they don't have this glucuronidase. Glucuronidase, which is a very major piece, the most important pathway in biotransformation. The dogs, not only cat, not all animal in the cat family, lion, civet cat, leopard,
Felidae family.
All the thank you, the Felidae, that the Felid family, they have that serious problem. So that in the choice of anesthesia, this is more technical. You need to look, or you potentiate the anesthesia and kill the cat. And just as acetaminophen is talking about, you potentiate because it's not dropping in the value, because it is still a constant in the body, because the biotransformation is not being conducted. So whatever we give to cats, we need to be more circumspect. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you so much. There is no further question in the chat.
Prof, there's
Yes.
somebody here I would like to acknowledge, a veterinarian who spent most of his life chasing polio virus and monkeypox around Kaduna, Kano axis, Dr. Mustafa Tukur. I believe his wife is also keeping some poultry.
Tukur, is he here?
Yeah, he's here to coordinated.
Tukur, let's see your face.
Thank you, Prof.
Let's see your face, Tukur.
Thank you, Prof. Let me just ask my question. Let me just use the opportunity to ask my question.
No, yes, but let's show your face.
Answer your question, but it's no polio virus. It's not polio virus, not monkeypox.
Thank you very much. It has been a very interesting discussion so far since I joined. My apology because I joined late. I got the link quite late. But my question is the part when I joined. I was hearing Dr. Dotun making comment about using choline chloride.
Choline chloride.
I mean,
yeah.
Yes, to control the fat gain for the poultry. I don't know if we have done some studies about the effect of accumulation of that particular product in humans, because ultimately this is a food animal. So, because I know, for instance, there has been mention about it having some effect around, I think, is it heart that is associated excessive, even though they mention, yes, it has low toxicity, but then they did mention also that accumulation of it has some effect around, I think, it can cause some cardiovascular issues. So we need to be considering some of these things because, like I said, ultimately these are food animals. So whatever we are giving, especially things that we know we are going to keep for a long time, this thing is going to build up in this product, and ultimately people are going to consume this thing. So some of these, I don't know whether I can thoroughly consider. Thank you. That's my statement.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mustafa. Hi, Susu.
Yeah, you have just incited a research question, and I think we'll look into it.
Yeah, honestly. Thank you.
Any response?
So yes, Dr. Dotun, you want to say something? Dr. Oladele?
I think if I got him right, he was having concerns about the use of choline chloride.
Yeah, but I don't think.
Yeah, it's basically like a nutrient too. And, one of the major role it plays, it helps to mobilize fats, and that is what we try to take advantage of. Now, if you recall, I was saying that it could be used about a month before the farmer wants to sell the birds as spent layers. So if at all there's going to be any fears of maybe residue or whatever you probably have read about, or maybe how it could affect humans and all that, I think 1 month is more than enough for any excess of the choline chloride to have been cleared from the system before it will be sold out for people who would want to buy the spent layers to consume. So I have not come across any documents, with such kind of complaints, but I think it's something we can all look into and find out. But I think that period of 1 month withdrawal, which I had mentioned, should be enough to take care of such concerns. So that is all I have to say on that.
Dr. Dotun, please warn Mustafa Tukur because he has a bulging belly. So let him not try it on himself. His stomach is so big. So that's why he's so much interested. Because
in fact, he can even conduct a research. He can use himself to conduct a research.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Well, do we call any of the farmers to just speak to us and then?
Yes, I think that would be great. We'd like to hear from them if you know them.
There's an area they want us to modify. When next we are treating topics that involve them, then we'll take it into a proper perspective.
Jamila Haruna, can you say something? Or Dr. Omar Bello, can you say something for us? Because they're just practicing veterinarians and they have farms that they manage, if they get something, most farmers have left happening because of the longer period we took discussing these issues. I think the one left is Jamil Haruna is there.
And before we drop at them, we have this topic on which we can send to them or anybody on the YouTube. I'm going to pass it around. When I pass it to you, you pass it to them. And please inform them. And in fact, we have sent our YouTube channel. Please, most of you, the slides are in the YouTube channel. And as you get there, please be subscribing to our network so that we can expand our coast. Please, just click the subscription button and it will help us to go travel far.
A lady farmer was us, Asma Obama. Please, do you have something to tell us? She has been a very active farmer around. Asma, do you have something to tell us? Asma, can you hear us?
Looks like.
Okay, then I think Prof, I think it's high time we round off the.
Yes,
as a moderator, it's high time we round off. Yes, I think so.
We have spent over 2
I
hours.
hand over back to you, Prof. Oladele. Please do the needful and thank us, and I think we'll call it a day.
Thank you so much. Dr. Oladele, first say a big thank you to you.
Thank you, ma'am.
We have your name is even big enough to gather so many big wigs, and we have seen that today.
And those farmers, some farmers around you, most times be bringing them on board. Please.
Okay. What I'll be doing, I'll be putting these on some platforms also, so that
they will gain from it. So we appreciate you. Thank you for sharing knowledge with us. Everyone that has contributed, we say a big thank you. Professor Musa, thank you for the coordination. And then our chief, what do I call him now? You chief coordinator, chief host, chief everything, Dr. Charles Ibwe of Blue Bat TV. We thank you for this platform, and I'll hand over to you because I should not close it like that.
I think we are coming to the end. Everybody is tired, including me. But the only thing I want to tell farmers and everybody here, that the topography of your farm depends on a lot of things. Structure of your... If you are staying in a very windy place, don't build a fragile structure. If you're staying in a very hot place, if you are staying on the plateau, like those of us in JOS, the temperature is so clement there. But if you are staying where there's valley or where there's going to be a problem. Flatlands, valleys, the convection current of heat travels very, very, very well in those places. But if it is made, we've structured our place to come up with some dynamic topics. Next Saturday is a World Rabies Day. Hopefully I'll be in Nigeria to be part of that program. And it's for the public also, because people need to know about rabies. And we are pleading with UNIJOS. If he's free, I will ask him by Monday. If he's free, he will be our moderator. He will moderate one younger vet that's working on the topic rabies. Thank you very much, Oladele. And I think we're going to call it